Madam Chairman, my apologies for being late and then being in and out. We had some armed services meetings and some interviews with nominees, and voting, so back and forth. Welcome, Mr. Vogt. Nice to have you here. Is that you? No.
I can't tell. It's been all hearing.
As a senator who's on appropriation and also on the authorizing committee of armed services, I can attest that the budget justification documents that provide us with the granular program level information, they are immensely important to building these annual bills. Congress has been waiting over 4 months for the department's budget justification books. Fiscal year 2026, it starts in just 3 months. The budget information provided to Congress for the Department of Defense, sir, which accounts for over half of all discretionary spending. So far, that amounts to just a table of contents. It is not helpful. These delays by OMB have impeded our work on our annual bills and complicated our ability to deliver timely funding for fiscal year 2026. Going forward, I hope that you and your team will work with us and communicate more clearly so that we can work together, so that we can get the information needed from you and so that we can work on our responsibilities and better serve the American people. I look forward to doing that.
Patriots ... buckle up. What you're about to hear will fire you up, and for good reason. Once again, we're watching firsthand how Washington's bureaucratic maze is putting our national defense, our law enforcement, and even our emergency alert systems at risk, and all because of gross incompetence, political gamesmanship, and misplaced priorities from this administration. This wasn't a slip-up. This was intentional neglect of duty by the Office of Management and Budget, the very institution responsible for coordinating and delivering the information Congress needs to secure our nation. The video I just watched featured a senator from Nebraska holding the line, grilling OMB officials and exposing the cracks in the system. What was revealed? Alarming. Let's break it down.
Absolutely, Senator. We are working very diligently to clear as many congressional justifications as we possibly can. I get a daily update on this right now. I assure you it's not all OMB. We are working expeditiously to get this thing up to you as much as we possibly can.
Great, because we're going to be starting our NDAA work on armed services very, very soon, and it would be helpful as an authorizing committee to be able to have information. Now I'm also going to talk to you about rural radio and the emergency alerts that we get on that. You've heard from a number of my colleagues about the issues they have on the emergency alerts, on the tribal needs that many of us have in our states with that. But I am very concerned also about the emergency alerts that come to many places in Nebraska only through that rural radio. We're a state of vastness, very sparsely populated areas that don't receive cell service in many cases. It's difficult even with landlines in many areas of my state. Would you also commit to working with me to figure out if we are going to need some replacements for this so that all Americans, no matter where they live, will be able to have access to these alerts? I know you committed to work on the tribal issues, but I am also concerned about emergency alerts.
Absolutely, Senator.
Thank you, sir. I would hope that we can figure out who's going to carry out those responsibilities if these stations end up being shuttered. As the administration decided on the proposed rescissions, can you walk us through OMB's consultations with the State Department and also with the Department of Defense, specifically on preventing China which this administration rightly considers our pacing threat from exploiting any gaps that may occur due to those rescissions. How did you do it?
Thank you for the question, Senator. We worked in close collaboration with the State Department on this, with the Department of Government Efficiency. Originally, this was pure waste, fraud, and abuse, with basically no policy reductions. Where you see the policy reductions are in things like World Health Organization, some of the international organizations that we fund that are both voluntary and assessed. And so whatever you see is the example is we have over an annualized basis, we've identified waste and abuse and things that are actively harming our foreign policy. This would do nothing to impact our ability to respond to our adversaries.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, I would just ask for one more question. Thank you. I believe that we need to have constructive reorganization of our federal agencies. I believe that we must have good stewardship of taxpayer dollars. However, I have had outreach from a number of Nebraska law enforcement about a proposed transfer of the HITA funding to the Justice Department. And they're concerned that a transfer of those funds would undermine their very important efforts that they use those funds for with drug task force and their regional task forces to counter that drug trafficking. I've seen firsthand how important this funding is, especially in the panhandle of Nebraska. Have you consulted with any state or local law enforcement about that recommendation from OMB, and have you heard concerns from constituents like mine?
Senator, we have not heard concerns. I can go back and double check and to the extent to which we had stakeholder involvement as we crafted that budget. Again, it's a shift to a department that does grant making. And so we've had a long concern the extent to which the EOP is in the grant-making business, that it probably doesn't have the skills to do that. So we don't really view this as in any way reducing our support for law enforcement at all. That's a common theme throughout our budget. But I will go back and check on our stakeholder engagement on that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Ossoff.
First off, 4 months. That's how long Congress has been waiting for detailed budget documents from the Pentagon. The FY 2026 budget starts in 3 months, and all they've received so far is a table of contents. A freaking table of contents, folks. That's what the Biden administration thinks is acceptable when it comes to funding over half of all discretionary spending, most of it related to national defense. This is what happens when you let woke ideologues run our institutions instead of actual patriots. The Armed Services Committee is about to begin work on the National Defense Authorization Act, and they're flying blind. This is like trying to fly a fighter jet with no cockpit data. Meanwhile, the Pentagon's being asked to stand ready against China, Iran, and a world on fire. But instead of empowering them, this administration is dragging its feet, prioritizing WHO memberships and globalist pet projects over American security. Asterisk. Then there's the emergency alert issue in Nebraska. You see, many parts of rural America don't have reliable cell service or landlines. Their only lifeline during disasters? Rural radio stations. But guess what? The administration's policies may shut those stations down. We're talking about millions of Americans being left in the dark during wildfires, storms, or national emergencies, all because Biden's bureaucrats want to streamline and consolidate without understanding the consequences. Where's the compassion for Heartland America? Or do they only care about voters in big blue cities? And don't be fooled by their so-called rescissions. They say they're cutting waste, but they're also pulling back support from international organizations that actually play a role in keeping foreign adversaries like China in check. Now, the OMB claims they consulted with the State and Defense Departments, but when pressed, their answers were vague at best. You can't trust bureaucrats who are more concerned about optics than outcomes. And here's where it hits home. Nebraska law enforcement is fuming over the administration's move to transfer HITA drug task force funds, critical money used to fight cartels and traffickers, to the DOJ. That shift? It's not about efficiency. It's about centralized control. These funds save lives, and taking them away from local task forces is a slap in the face to every sheriff, cop, and special agent risking their lives in small towns across America. When asked whether they consulted law enforcement, OMB's answer? Crickets. They didn't even bother to ask. Closing emotional call to action. Host passionate. My fellow patriots, this is why we fight. This isn't about politics anymore. It's about whether or not the people in charge are protecting this nation, or letting it rot from the inside out through apathy, delays, and failed leadership. It's time to wake up America. We need leaders who put security over symbolism, citizens over globalists, and facts over fantasy. Like, share, and subscribe if you believe real Americans deserve better than what this administration is serving up. And don't forget to hit that notification bell, because the mainstream media sure won't tell you the truth. But we will right here on USA News Today. Stay strong, stay loud, stay free,